The journey of self improvement is unique in its nature. The reason is because there is no finish line. This will be the hardest journey you will have going forward from today. Welcome back everybody to the Insightful podcast. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. I wanted to speak about how I believe that the self improvement journey is the hardest thing you will experience and why it's unique compared to all other pursuits. Without further ado, let's get into this. So, the first aspect is that you can seek improvement in every single area of your life, right? A lot of the times you might try to improve in soccer or a sport. I guess I'll just use a sport as an example. I always use soccer because that's what I like to play. But if you want to become good at soccer, you need to play soccer. You need to do the drills. You need to do the things that supplement also to help you get better at soccer. But with self improvement, is it's all encompassing, right? You getting better at soccer is self improvement. It falls under the same umbrella, but you also improving your relationships, you improving your mindset, you improving your physique, you improving your business. All those things are within itself self improvement. They're all encompassing, right? And that's why I think it's the hardest journey that you could go through is because it exists everywhere, right? If you're scrolling, that is an area that you can improve about yourself. If you're someone that procrastinates, that is an area that you can improve about yourself. So there's so many aspects to self-improvement that is why it is the hardest journey. And you could see, like I'm saying, is there's always something that you're doing or that you're not doing that you can improve with. You could always become better at what you're doing or how you're living. And it's not in a way to, like, I guess, degrade yourself and be like, oh, I'm never doing enough, I'm never accomplishing enough. But it's a true blessing to realize that you can always improve, and you don't have to stay stagnant or stay at a certain position in life. You could always seek improvement in anything that you're doing. The next thing is your journey with God is connected to self improvement, and you'll be tested. I can honestly say this right now, out of all the things that I have tried to do in my life, the hardest thing is strengthening my connection with God. And it's because there's so many times where life gets so busy and so many things are going on that you can't, it's not that you can't help it, but it just ends up happening where you put God behind yourself and you don't really put him forward and you don't allow God to be centered in your life. So, just that aspect of self improvement is extremely difficult. And I don't know if you guys can relate to this as well, but I was speaking to Driz on the previous podcast or the podcast that you guys haven't seen yet. I don't know when this one's going to be released. And I actually asked him about that because he mentions how, like, just because you start seeing some success or you start seeing some betterment in your life, that doesn't mean you forget about God. But we can't help but naturally do that. And the reason is, it's most of the time when people go to God or people try to strengthen their faith, it comes from a place when, you know, nothing's going right, you feel lost, and things are hard, right? Very rarely do you see someone that is ultra successful, they never believed in God, and then they start believing in God, right? It's not really a common occurrence. It does happen, but not as frequently as someone who is struggling that decides to seek God. So let's take a quick break to speak about the sponsor for the podcast. I am now working with a company called Attilius Apparel, and if you want Christian fitness wear that looks like this, or this, click the link in the description. Now let's get back into the podcast. You end up finding yourself being very connected to God on your low moments, but when it starts to get better, you kind of forget about him. And that's the thing, right? Is that's why I believe self-improvement is so difficult, because it's a constant challenge to develop yourself, right? To Every single moment that you will deal with in life will be a different experience, and how you react to that experience will always be different no matter what pursuit it is. And especially with your connection with God, you may be struggling and get super connected to God, and then the second you start seeing some success and what you prayed for starts coming to fruition, all of a sudden you start to forget about him, right? So it's a constant battle that you must be willing to accept, and also be willing to understand that it will get more and more difficult. The next thing is that self improvement, you can't get complacent. You know, when you're playing a sport and you kind of achieve the thing that was in the back of your mind that you wanted to achieve for a very long time, you could get complacent, right? And that's the thing about self improvement is, and I saw this firsthand. Once I started going to the gym consistently, I started putting on muscle, I started reading more, whatever the case may be. When I first started my self improvement journey, I begun to become complacent, right? And I didn't start to seek growth, and I started to feel bad about myself because I realized that everyone's self improvement journey is different, and that's why you cannot compare yourself, because what's difficult for you now won't be difficult for you 6 months from now. So when it comes to 6 months from now, you realize, okay, I've made a lot of progress, but I need to actually start to try to do more, right? It's the best example, the best analogy I could give, and I use this all the time because it's so relatable, is waking up early. If you're someone that wakes up at 12 every single day, you need to maybe start waking up at 10. And once you start waking up at 10 and that becomes easy, you could become complacent and you don't decide to push yourself a little further and try to wake up a bit earlier, right? So that's the thing is, with self-improvement, you can never be complacent, because the second you become complacent for too long, that is exactly when you stop making progress. And if you constantly want to see progress, and progress is not linear, right? It's not just going straight like this. There's a bunch of up and downs. But if you want to be able to see as much day to day progress as you can, you need to constantly be seeking growth and not allow yourself to get complacent. The next thing I want you guys to realize is that the strength that you are looking for already exists within you, right? There is no motivational video, there is no person that could tell you what you need to do. You know exactly what you need to do. And that is your inside, that is yourself, that is your higher self speaking to you, right? Maybe you're watching this podcast because you want some motivation on your self improvement journey, and it's great. People could say, oh, you say it doesn't matter, but you're getting views from it, right? But obviously you need to realize that this video isn't going to change who you are. This video isn't going to better yourself. There was a TikTok that went super viral, and it was saying that like self improvement is bullshit. And it kind of is, in the sense that if you kind of look for the external source to allow yourself to get better, you'll never actually start improving, because you'll think there's another book you need to read in order to feel more motivated. There's another podcast you need to watch. There's another edit that you need to watch to get you driven, get you motivated, but that all exists within you. And going back to the whole waking up early thing, is I realize, I always tell myself, am I setting myself up for failure when I don't wake up at 4 a.m.? No. When I woke up this morning, I got up and I immediately started my day. That is why I was able to get up. There is nothing else that is stopping me from doing it. It is just me and making the decision to actually push myself, right? So there is no external source that exists that's going to allow you to do what you want to do. It is all within you. You just need to get up and do it, right? The next thing on your self improvement journey, and why it becomes difficult, is if you do not have this perspective, everything will seem challenging. You need to embrace every difficulty that you are faced with, right? When you are struggling, when you realize that, this is difficult, that like maybe I bit off more than I can chew, you need to embrace that difficulty. You need to embrace it, because once you come out of it, you know that you will be a better version of you, right? So if you're able to embrace every difficulty on this self-improvement journey, you'll be much better off because, like I said, everything is difficult here. You are constantly trying to seek a higher version of yourself that you don't know exists, but that person does exist. It's just through your daily actions and your habits. That's when that person can be achieved, right? So you need to realize that once you're able to embrace all these difficulties, that is exactly what is going to assist you the most on the self-improvement journey. So that is the biggest perspective that helped me start bettering myself and helped me to actually start seeing progress in my life. The next thing is self-improvement is very difficult because many people quit because they realize how hard the journey actually is, right? And it's a constant struggle of balancing self-love and grace and, downplaying yourself and hating yourself, right? Because imagine if you set out to wake up earlier, have a clean diet, go to the gym, right? And all these things are within yourself. No one is telling you you need to do these things. If you sleep in, if you don't eat well, if you don't go to the gym, nothing bad's going to happen to you, right? But the reason why it's so hard and such a difficult journey, and it's the most difficult one that you'll be on, is that it's all up to you. The consequences fall on you. The consequence is that if you don't work hard now, if you don't struggle now, if you don't go through that pain now, you won't be able to see the best version of yourself a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, right? That person will never exist. They'll never come to fruition. And that is all up to you. There's no one forcing you to do this, right? And that's what makes it difficult because a lot of the times we are told what we need to do and then we do it. But this isn't told to you. If you don't become the best version of yourself, the only person that misses out is you. No one else is pressuring you to do that. And that's what makes it so difficult, is because you have 100% accountability in your life, right? And maybe you need to start putting some self-inflicted consequences when you don't follow through to your promises. Maybe that could actually help you to start doing the good things you know you can do. So realize that this journey is all up to you, and your actions are going to make you into the person that you become. So do the right actions, because I know for a fact the biggest regret that I will have in the future is if I didn't push myself and I didn't become who I knew I could become. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast and making it this far. If you enjoyed it, remember to follow us on Spotify. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Let me know in the comments what has been the most impactful episode of the podcast so far, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Rush a cold to a diamond, eyes forever shining. Your beauty alone inspire a nigga to rhyming.